Thanks a lot. Joining me now, the head man in charge of the St. Aug Falcons football team. Here, of course, I'm talking about the head coach, Howard Feggins. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to come over, especially when I know you're out there looking at other players and teams. And I wanted to ask you, right off the top, it could be anything now, when they've dropped you into a situation to be the head man, what has been the toughest part of this job thus far? Because some coaches have told me recruiting, some told me, getting guys to buy. What's the thing that has made you just go, whew, okay?
Changing the mindset of these young men. When the program has not had success in several years, they're used to doing things not the correct way. When you come from a championship programs, they understand, and that's part of my job.
Trying to bring the swagger back, basically? Is that what
we definitely got to bring swagger back.
I know they got it over there, St. Aug. You just had to break that out some.
Yes, they did.
Let me ask you, what's that one thing that you maybe weren't expecting? Because I know sometimes there's certain unique things about each school. You haven't been there unless you've been there, and you haven't been at St. Aug. What's that one thing that got you like, whoa, wait a minute, what? Hold on now.
I think the biggest thing was the field. We need a new field turf. And that was, I did not know how bad it was until I got there. We're currently looking at getting a new field turf now, and so that will be exciting for me. But outside of that, everything else I expected, that happens.
Changing attitudes, changing a culture. Sometimes it can be a multi-year thing, depending on how you run things. How has it been getting the buy-in for these guys, not just with the culture, but also with the new offense and possible defense that you're setting up for these guys?
Well, I think that one of the most positive thing is I've come from a championship pedigree. Right. And my success record in regards to where I've been, I've seen a lot of champions and how things were done. The biggest thing for me to continue to make sure these young men is holding each other accountable. Coaches holding themselves accountable. I mentioned to a young man the other day when he interviewed me, I told them they are young enough to walk. And I said, I seen a bunch of guys driving to practice again. And so it's a little thing to me that matters. And so, we had to do some reminders that, hey, you guys are young enough, let's walk. And that's a little thing, but it's important for me.
I guess it's also a pretty big thing. I mean, coming from Fayetteville State, offensive coordinator down there last year, it's a little easier to get these guys to go for what you're saying when you can basically break out the CIAA championship ring, right? Have you had to break it out, or you kept it in the box?
I have. I did it early on. I said I'm not going to wear it until we wear our own anymore. And so, but no, they know, because what I try to preach to young men everywhere I've been, I try to give them stories on what they are doing, of what the former coach did to help get things changed. And I talk about Fayetteville State and their success in the summer school, that they're going to be 70 kids down there working out. Little things like that. It's more of that sacrifice, the same thing I mentioned in my press conference. What are you willing to sacrifice to be a champion?
You got to do the things that other people won't to get the things that others don't have. So
True.
I do understand that. Let's talk a little bit about that offense, what we're going to see. We've become familiar with seeing a few different guys under center, but have you settled on anybody? And I'll just lead you into this. Is it Chris Perkins?
It is Chris Perkins, actually. I brought a young man in, Anthony Butler. He's a fifth-year senior. His ankles bother him a little bit, and he's going through a little growing pains with that. He will be playing the first game. A veteran leader. Very intelligent, knows the game very well. But Chris, the thing with Chris is he knew that I'm going to bring young men and take his job, but he stayed on course, competing. The biggest challenge for me, as I told him today, is be disciplined in little things and learn how to slide.
He definitely wanted to lower the shoulder. Not exactly a Cam Newton big body to be able to do that.
No,
run out of bounds too, buddy. The sidelines are your friends.
Yes.
A couple times
we talked about that since day one I met him.
Right.
And I said to him, look, we can't afford you to get hurt. You have to learn how to slide. And actually this week we're going to start practicing it because he does give you a dual threat, the ability to look downfield. But there's some little things that we're still working on him to get him better. But I like where he's going.
Nice to know he's got that attitude to stick his face in the fan, but don't need it all the time.
No.
It's kind of tough to get him to dial it back there. Speaking of guys that go downhill between the tackles last year, Vontae George in the backfield. What about him and that ground game that you got? Because there were quite a few guys that toted the rock for him last year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, Vontae has been wonderful. My biggest challenge for him is his balance. Mm-hmm. He's very explosive, does not mind contact. There's a practice that he blocked, I think, Freshwater, one of my DNs, and it was a great job in pass protection. And so he's got a chance to be a great player for us. And that's what I'm excited about, because he's a dual threat from a standpoint, the ability to catch the ball. You'll see him flexed out as a receiver a lot this year.
Speaking of the receivers, transitioned quite nicely into this. The one guy that everybody game planned for when he was on the field, DeAndre Proctor. I'm assuming that you're going to have him one-on-one or try to get him in those situations where he can do the most damage for you.
Yes, you know, we did that today. Matter of fact, the defense was giving us one-on-one backside, so we just checked to a play to him. The thing with my offense, I give any receiver an opportunity to be all over the field. So you're not lucky in one position. You can be in the backfield. Because if you got a team that's playing man-to-man, if I can lock a linebacker with Proctor in the backfield, I'm going to take a chance. So it's going to be multiple to give him those opportunities.
I can't wait to see that offense. That's some innovation looking forward to over there on Oakwood Avenue, I'm sure. And let's flip this over here to the other side of the football here. One guy that, I mean, I got more plays of, and I mean, just you talk about arriving to the football, to the party, with a bad attitude and bad intentions as Lee Sales, man. What can we expect out of him this year, and what have you got? What is he looking like?
Well, I'm excited to see him because last year wasn't his best season. He was on our rookie team his freshman year, and he had some things going family-wise which caused him to have a little setback. But he's excited. I mean, I'm excited for him. He voted as a preseason All-CIAA linebacker, and he's been, you know, doing what he does on the football field so far. So he's going to be fun to watch.
Now, there's one guy that I heard about a long time ago coming. He's finally on the field, finally got him suited up. Freshwater. Go ahead. Let's hear it, because I know they're going to be calling his name over the loudspeaker here. What does he look like? Because I've heard some great things about him.
The thing about him, when I first got the job, I do my homework, and one of the first players I heard about was Freshwater. And he's now up to like 250, 255. And he runs better than I anticipated. I never forget, we had a screen away from him. And next thing you know, that guy was on the sideline basically making a tackle. And so, but he's a young man that has 4 years to play. And he's going to be a potential guy that we can look at, I think, in the future to be an NFL player.
Now, let's talk about the guys that you got brought in here. I know that there's some players that are going to pop and play and ready to go, transfers that are going to show up day one and make an impact. Who are those impact guys and the names that we're going to be hearing about when I go out to see
Monty Williams, a linebacker out of St. Andrews. That young man will be an all-conference player this year. He is 6'2", probably 220. Will be an all-conference player this year. And I tell you what, it can run. And with Coach Owens coaching, I'm watching him, and he's physical, he's mean, he's disciplined. He's one. Another young man out of Texas, Collins, 6'4", 255, playing outside linebacker. Perkins broke over on a pull read position, and he was able to run with Perkins. And so, and he's been a surprise. We got David Halleck, a fifth-year guy. Actually, might have 2 years to play. Nose guard out of Lindsey Wilson, veteran leader. Had guys out there running after practice with him to get him in shape. So we think we're pretty stacked on defense, especially in that front area.
What are the fans going to see that is the biggest difference from last year to this year? I mean, somebody that's been around the program can probably pick out 8 or 9 things instantaneously. Obviously, the man on the sidelines, you know, standing.
Right.
But what's the thing the average fan, the alumni that comes in, buys the season tickets, gets the popcorn, sits down, looks out on that field? What is going to be the biggest difference from last year to this year?
I will say a disciplined, fast, physical football team. And our special teams are going to be great. It's going to be great. We spend so much time on special teams. My son sent me something several weeks ago, and I shared it with the team back on the 29th when we arrived. And it talked about Miami Hurricanes back in 2001.
Right.
The offense scored 0. If the offense scored 0 points, the defense and special teams, their record would have been 8-4. So that's where I've been living with our guys to understand we're going to be great at special teams. I have a kicker from the UK. That just got here, and I got a kicker from Mobile, Alabama, and they're doing well.
That could definitely win you and lose you some ball games.
Yes.
That's for sure. I mean, there's a bunch of times where a kicker, if they could consistently hit him from 25, 30 yards, you're looking at you're looking at putting them in the CIAA championship game on a few
Correct.
occasions here the last 3 years. So I definitely understand that. First opponent, let's get into that a little bit. You're not ducking anybody. I mean, Lenore Ryan right off the top. I mean, that's last I checked, what, 25th in the rankings here in the SAC.
They're very expensive. Very, very highly ranked. I know early on they were ranked as high as 16th. They could have dropped. They're real good. I was talking to the quarterbacks today. They're real good. And up front, I think they got a potential All-American D tackle. That's really good. And so they're not ranked high for any reason. I'm expecting a big challenge. But for us, though, it's more about to see where we're at. I'd rather have that challenge in a team that you win 50-0. So give us that challenge. And not only that, to me, it's going to help educate our guys. And then one of the things I learned, I'm going to go all the way back to 2000 Northwestern University. That's trust factor. Sure. Trust what we're teaching you. Trust what your coach. Trust your footwork. And we'll see what happens.
Guess you can't get better playing cupcakes. Isn't that what they say?
That's true.
You got to step up and go for.
I like cupcakes, though.
Hey, you didn't notice, buddy. I'm a big fan myself.
Yeah.
So there's a crumble right around the corner too, which ain't bad. We'll talk about that later. At the end of this season, with all of the new things that you've had to install and all of the stuff that you've had to change and bring, what would you like to look back on, or what would you look back on and go, you know what, I'm happy with that. Doesn't have to be a record. Doesn't have to be a number or anything like that. It could be anything. But what would you like to look back on at the end of this when it's all said and done, whether we're, talking off Oakwood Avenue, whether we're talking in Salem, you and I here coming up. What would you look back on and go, you know what, I'm happy with that. I'm good with that.
Again, I'm going to go back to what I said, that we play disciplined, fast football. And to me, that's going to tell us a lot more about who we are. I want every opponent that we play to say, hey, look, this program is on the way up. That's like a goal. I don't know what the record is going to end up being, but at the end of the day, they're going to know that this team is coming.
Things are changing at Oakwood Avenue. Send it back to you.